Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Shirley Jose, Associate Professor in the Department of Economics, Sacred Heart College, Chalakudy. Today, I am dealing with Keynesian theory and income determination, which is Module 4 in macroeconomics, which is part of the syllabus of the 5th semester BA Economics program of Calicut University. In the previous module, we had learned about the classical theory of income, output and employment with its firm beliefs in the system of laissez-faire, in Say's law, in automatic adjustment of the capitalist economy and full employment equilibrium. In today's class, I will be dealing with the introduction to the Keynesian theory, that is the background to the Keynesian revolution. Up to the 1920s, classical economists or classical economic thought ruled economic theory. Economists believed in laissez-faire, they believed in automatic adjustment of the economic system. They believed in Say's law, that is, supply creates its own demand. But all the beliefs and all the postulates of the classical economists fell to the ground and were disproved during the Great Depression of 1929. The Great Depression started immediately after the stock market crash in the United States of America in 1929. It was the longest and the deepest economic downturn in the history of the capitalist economies like the United States and the United Kingdom. During the recession, a common sight was unemployed workers standing for free goods in front of public shops. Unemployment had become so severe, people were thrown out of jobs, there were no incomes, there was no business activity, and overall there was a climate of pessimism prevailing in the capitalist economies, principally USA and UK. It is in this backdrop that Keynes published his magnum opus in the year 1936, which is titled The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, which radically changed economic thinking during that particular time period. John Maynard Keynes was born in 1883 and he slowly evolved and grew up to be a renowned journalist, economist and financier. In the beginning, Keynes himself was a strong believer in the classical postulates. But later on in life, he revisited his theories and tried to build up a theory which emphasized the importance of government expenditure in reviving the economy from a recessionary or depressionary state of affairs. Keynes' father himself was a strong believer of the classical theory. So, Keynes tried to provide a solution to the problems of the Great Depression in capitalist economies of the world. The Great Depression actually lasted from 1929 to 1939. That is why I told you earlier that it was one of the longest lasting economic downturns in the capitalist economies of the world. So, Keynes said that he actually refuted Say's law that supply creates its own demand. He said that whatever is supplied is not automatically demanded. So what happens is there will be oversupply or a glut of goods in the markets. Nobody is willing to buy anything, which results in massive piling up of unsold goods. So what happens is, what he's trying to say is that supply does not create its own demand, and therefore he believed that demand revival is the key to taking the economy out of a recession or a depression. So his whole theory is based on the principle of effective demand. He believed that the deficiency of effective demand was the reason why the capitalist economies moved into a depression. Similarly, he also challenged the classical economists' belief in the laissez-faire system. Laissez-faire essentially means minimum government interference. He said that the government should intervene in the economic affairs of a state by increasing its expenditure on public work programs like building of roads, canals, and other such projects which help in providing employment opportunities to the masses. When employment opportunities increase, automatically income comes into the hands of the workers, and when disposable income increases, automatically demand will increase. And when demand increases, what happens is production will increase. And when production increases, employment opportunities will once again increase, which leads to increased income, output and employment, and so on. So he believed that the government has an important role to play in turning the economy from a depression to the path of recovery. So he basically said that a laissez-faire principle need not necessarily work always. And Keynes was essentially a short-run economist. In his words, I quote, he says that in the long run we are all dead. So he always talks about problems in the short run, as against the classical economists who always believed that in the long run the economy will bring itself back into equilibrium. For the classical economists, disequilibrium was only a temporary situation. In the long run, the market forces of demand and supply will bring back equilibrium in the market, and there will be full employment of all factors of production like land, labor, capital and organization. Keynes said that unemployment is a more normal situation, underemployment is a more normal situation, full employment is an exceptional situation. So unemployment and underemployment, that was a possibility which Keynes tried to analyze in his general theory. So he talked about both full employment equilibrium as well as underemployment equilibrium. He also did not believe that wages and prices are flexible. He in fact believed that wages are rigid in the downward direction. So the rigidity in the downward direction of wages was responsible for unemployment or involuntary unemployment in the market. This is because labor unions and trade unions prefer not to get wages decreased, and workers are not interested in getting their wages decreased. On the other hand, business firms who employ the workers would prefer to hire more workers only at a lower wage rate. So what happens is, automatically this will result in business firms hiring lesser workers, which leads to unemployment. So basically, the sticky wage syndrome which the labor market goes through is responsible for unemployment or underemployment according to Keynes. So you find that Keynes in his theory tries to refute or repudiate all the postulates of the classical theory, principally Say's law, laissez-faire, automatic adjustment mechanism, and the wage price flexibility theory. So he radicalized economic thinking at that point of time and bring to the forefront the role of the government in making the economy recover from a downturn. So you find that all these were the reasons why Keynesian economics was called the Keynesian revolution. And Keynes is essentially considered to be the father of new economics. So These are the things which I had wanted to tell you about regarding the background of the Keynesian revolution and how Keynesian economics came into the forefront, and how he tried to give a solution to the Great Depression, how he tried to give solutions to unemployment, and basically how to increase employment opportunities, output and income, etc. Thank you. In tomorrow's class, I shall deal with the principle of effective demand, which is one of the basic postulates of the Keynesian theory of income determination. Thank you.